It is so great to be here with you. Did you know that from the day you start a business, if you want to make it big and successful, chances are it's going to consume the next 61,344 hours of your life? How's that sound? Today, what I really want to talk with you about is the theme of alignment. This is something that's very passionately personal to me as I've been building the business. And I was so happy to have the opportunity to listen to Evan's talk just before this, where he mentioned that as an entrepreneur, he feels that he would have actually been potentially a little bit more successful had he had a little bit more balance early on. I think we can all agree he's one of the most successful entrepreneurs that we all look up to. So hearing that message from someone who's been there and is still there really meant a lot to me. Before we go into that, yeah, I heard a couple rounds of applause out there. Before we go into that, I want to take you a little bit into my background. How many of you remember hearing this sound in person? Ah! Good, that was about half the room. That's a sound that's pretty near and dear to my heart. I got my start in both business and technology back in the day at Prodigy Internet. We heard Evan mention CompuServe, which was one of the other 3 main ISPs. I started at Prodigy Internet in 1998, writing member communications to help people understand how to use this new thing called the Internet, similar to the video in a way. And one of my favorite memories from that time was our 4th of July newsletter, where I wanted to celebrate the 4th of July virtually, and I spent probably about half a day trying to search around and find the best website to celebrate the 4th of July, and the best I could come up with was this black screen, dot matrix, single color, kind of fireworks bursting like this. And it's such a neat memory to think back on. Here we are at 2014, and it's just incredible what's been built. After getting my start there, I spent most of my career in different aspects of technology, working on the media side and the advertising side. Most recently, I helped a big old data company build a digital data group, help them learn how to use the assets that they had in a new way to make advertising more effective, to personalize experiences on the web. And through all of these experiences over the years, I just became really passionate about the power for technology to transmit messages, inspire people, help them live better lives. But as I was going through that, there was one thing that I realized, particularly at the end when we had a nice successful exit with this company, and that was that I was still living in a way where I had my work life, and it was successful, and I was happy with it, and then I had my life, which felt pretty separate. And because I had worked hard at being successful at work, my life piece kind of suffered. And so what I decided to do next was actually take a sabbatical. I set aside what was intended to be 1 year of my life to just go off on an adventure, and I didn't have any particular plans around it. I didn't have any expectations. I put all of my belongings in storage and sublet my apartment so that I would reduce my costs, and took the savings I had and decided to just travel a bit. And in particular, I wanted to explore the things that I thought would add value to my life and the life of those around me. So one of the things I started with was ukulele. I still have a long way to go to really learn how to master this, but I loved the instrument because it was small and portable and easy to learn, and it was a way for me to start incorporating just an element of play and music and creativity back into my life. I also climbed mountains, tried to do yoga on top of the mountains. It was incredibly adventurous and scary all at once. I did a month-long yoga training so I could learn how to do yoga better on top of the mountains. Got certified as a yoga teacher. Along the way, I also got certified as a health coach. And then I started making, somewhere just before I went on sabbatical, I came up with the idea of making these bracelets. I still have one on here today, where I would stamp a single word on this brass ring for people, and the word was intended to be something that they really wanted to bring into their life. And it's always, the rule was it has to be one word and you have to choose it. And as I started making these for, at the beginning, a handful of friends, and later on, really hundreds of people, I ended up hearing all these incredible stories of the things that people wanted to bring into their life. Love, or surrender, or adventure, or music, all sorts of things. And while I would be sitting there on the floor just like this, stamping out the bracelet, I would hear their stories and why this word was important to them and what they wanted to bring into their life with it. And then, even more powerfully, months later, they would come back to me, or I'd run into the person somewhere else again, and they'd say, "Oh my gosh, I have to tell you how my word helped me." And then I would hear the stories of what happened, or I'd have other people come up to me and say, "Okay, I got it, I'm ready for a new word." And what I realized is that just we all have these things that we want to get better at in life. And as we run through the treadmill or hamster wheel or whatever you want to call it of our day-to-day lives, just trying to take care of work and home and everything else, a lot of times we don't take the time to stop and reflect. And I realize it's just really powerful if you can take one thing that you want to get better at a particular time and put focus on it, it can have a really nice impact. So, to summarize the adventure of Sabbatical, I've had this conversation with a lot of people who tell me, I'm thinking about taking some time off. How should I do it? What's the best way to make it effective? There are really 3 rules that I started out with that I would still very much recommend if you ever have the opportunity to take this time and space. And one of them, and probably the most important, is to just completely refrain from doing any sort of work related to what you were doing before. So no advising work, no consulting work, nothing that keeps you stuck in that mindset and knowledge base, and really the value that you've built through your career at that time. The second is to avoid expectations for what's next. So when I started off, I said, I could do anything from going back to exactly what I had done before, to starting a company, to becoming a yoga teacher. I have no idea. And that really gave me the space to have some freedom to explore what would arise within me. And most importantly, focus on what matters to you. So if it's travel or cooking or family or whatever it is that's really at the core of importance for you, let yourself have the freedom to explore that. And then for those of you who maybe are on the fence and think, gosh, I'd really like to do this one day, but I just don't know if I can, I'll also share that this was a very difficult decision for me. It probably took about a year to get to the strength of being able to step away in this manner. And what I finally realized, and what helped me do it, it wasn't that I had a ton of money, which I didn't. I had some savings because I'm somewhat frugal, but it was really the realization that I felt like I had built up the skills and resourcefulness and everything I needed to be able to always figure out how to put a roof over my head and food in my mouth. And even if that meant a roof that was shared with a lot of people, and if it meant rice and beans for many weeks, I knew I'd actually be okay with that as well in comparison to the trade-off of not having that spaciousness. So just a little bit of encouragement if you ever have the chance. But next, what I want to do is just show you the inspiration that came for me from having this experience and what I became really passionate about, and ultimately the inspiration for popexpert. So you can quickly play the video here.
What do I want to get better at? I guess meditation, yoga, cooking. I'm terrible at it. I burn eggs.
You could always get better at parenting.
What it takes to be an entrepreneur.
Anything involving my passions, so art and architecture.
I think it would be cool to learn to bake.
I've got 2 little boys now, and I feel that if I played an instrument, then they might pick that up.
How to dance a little bit better, so I can stop doing this move. I've been trying to do meditation and yoga on my own, and I think I could use some assistance because I don't really know what I'm doing.
I'm probably the biggest thing in my way.
If I could find it convenient to learn, I'd probably be a lot smarter.
Access to mentors is one of the most important things that anyone can have.
I'd need someone to hold my hand, to really teach me. I think that's the only way I'll learn.
It's really difficult to find the right people who I feel are qualified to give me that information.
Just having that scheduled face-to-face interaction where I'm accountable for showing up.
We're learning until the day we die.
When you get better at parenting, the reward's really immediate and obvious because your kids are happier and then you're happier.
The more I learn, the more well-rounded I am.
If I learned how to cook the way I wanted to, I'd throw dinner parties, I'd have all my friends over.
There are a couple of dads that pull the guitar out, and it would just be so fun to play along with them and do sing-alongs with the kids.
Maybe I can teach other people some of the stuff that I've learned. That'd be really cool.
How great are they? How many of you here have something that you want to learn that you just haven't gotten around to? Yes. I still want to learn the guitar. I haven't mastered that one. I have bought 2 guitars, which is another reason that I started this company. So what we're going to transition into now is 2 things that I've found to be very important in how I've been thinking through building this business. And we're still, to be completely honest, we're still somewhat early. So we started the company about 1.5 years ago. We've been very fortunately supported by some great investors and have a team of about 10 or 11 people. So I want to share that for context because in some ways, as I was thinking through what I wanted to speak with you about here today, for weeks I was just thinking, and these were the topics that kept coming up for me over and over again, this idea of building from your purpose, finding alignment in life, understanding your values. And I felt that given that we're a little bit early, I wondered, gosh, you know, am I qualified enough to be able to speak with this? Am I naive in thinking that this is possible? And I really thought a lot about that. But at the end of the day, I've realized that as an entrepreneur, I don't know how to build in any other way. And I have seen examples of people who've been successful building this way, and that's why Evan's talk just before this actually meant a lot to me, to see someone who's that successful, who's been doing the same, and also with Eric's talk yesterday. So what I want to share with you today is just how we're looking at the business as we're building popexpert, and I hope it gives some points of inspiration or ideas for you. So the first idea is really just thinking about understanding first your purpose and thinking about building from that purpose. What is it that you really value in life? What do you want to bring into the world as an expression of your contribution? Going back to the beginning, you spend a lot of hours building a company, and that number of hours is calculated not just based on the hours that you're actually physically working, it's the hours that you're sleeping, the hours that you're with friends. It's such an all-consuming experience that if you can figure out how to marry what you want to create in the world with the effort that goes into creating it, it provides a much richer source of inspiration and commitment into the business from my experience. And so one of the things I think about a lot, and as I try to understand my own journey as an entrepreneur, is I think there are kind of 2 different approaches that people take when they start a company. One is, you know, the idea of I just want to start a company, or I want to run a business, and I'm going to keep trying to find a business until it works. Same thing happens on the investment side, and I think that's perfectly okay. It's a different approach. I think another example of people who have been equally successful is finding something that you're really passionate about, that you just want to build against, and then continuing to iterate and develop until you can bring that into life. So as you saw from the video, my passion is really finding an opportunity to inspire and enable people to get better at life, to invest in themselves in a way that allows them to have a richer experience as they go through. So I would consider us a very mission-focused company. And And I had a very heartwarming experience this morning as I had a message from my team back in San Francisco saying that they were going to be watching this live on the live stream. So hi team, thank you for doing that. Although what I said back is like, oh my gosh, now I'm a little bit more nervous. And they wrote back saying, we all came to join this team because we were so inspired by your vision and passion for what we're building together, and so just share that. So I think having that mission-focused company can go a long way toward attracting people that are excited about what you're building together and having a sense of community among the team as a result of that. But what if you wanted to just build a business where you can help have a good livelihood for your family and you have time to spend with your family and it's not too overwhelming? That's perfectly fine too. So as I was speaking with a fellow entrepreneur friend recently about this, he said, what if there are so many great businesses out there that might just be a paper cup company? Something as simple as that. Are you saying that that's not mission-driven or is not important? And actually, I would say that it can be. So if you have a paper cup company, look at what Snapple did, and they put the little facts on the inside of the cap, which I always thought was really clever. And each day as you drink a Snapple, although it has a lot of sugar, so I didn't have many of those. But I loved the little cap. So if I had a choice between two different things and it was a Snapple and I knew I could get some little point of inspiration behind it, I thought that was great. So if you have a paper cup company, or if you work within a company and you're not necessarily an entrepreneur, but you're doing different things in the company, it's still possible to think of what is it that I can do within my role or within my business that expresses my purpose in the world and helps to share that. So I think as you'll see a little bit through some of these photos, one of my passions is mindfulness, with yoga as a part of that. I think one happy accident from that passion is that because I started going deeper into it, I was drawn to it from a personal level. I mentioned I got certified as a health coach. I did a 7-day silent meditation retreat, and I started getting integrated into the community of people that are focusing on these things. I also was able to realize that not only is this my passion, but it's also a trend that's starting to take out to move faster in the market. And in fact, at Wisdom 2.0 this year, which is a great conference in San Francisco, Arianna Huffington said 2013 was the year that the meditating CEO came out of the closet, which is kind of a cool quote. And she had a whole list of very, very top CEOs that had been meditating for 10, 20 years and finally were able to talk about it, felt comfortable talking about it. These are a few extracts from an article on Huffington Post that was shared over 7,000 times to say that 2014 will be the year of mindful living. And we're really starting to see that through many different aspects of culture today. So I think by understanding my purpose and going deep into it from a personal level, and then being willing to kind of take the risk of building a company with that mission in mind, it allowed me to start seeing these consumer trends. So building against purpose is not necessarily just something that makes you feel good, but I think it can also make a lot of business sense too. Also, if you look at trends just in workers, I think a lot of you in the room are probably millennials. How many millennials here? Okay, good. Not as many as I expected, actually. I'm basically on the cusp between millennial and Gen X, and so I think a lot about the different groups. And when you look at millennials and their preferences in work and the importance of values and passion and things like that to them, there's no question that the businesses that are more mission-focused and give themselves the freedom to express their values are going to be the ones that are better able to attract talent, that are going to have more creativity. I think Eric's company, Method, is such a fantastic example of that. Just in those videos and the stories of how they build culture, it's so clear that how many people want to work at Method after that presentation? I do too. So if you start with that purpose, then it gives you such a better opportunity to attract people who align with your purpose and can express their passions through it also. Another thing that I think a lot about as an entrepreneur is leadership. A topic that was very, very popular at this same Wisdom 2.0 conference was the addition of the feminine into leadership qualities, and the idea that as more and more women become leaders or on the board of directors and managers and things like that, it's not about replacing the masculine model or about adapting to it. It's really about combining what are the things that we can bring from the masculine and the feminine together to have a more effective approach. One of the things in terms of leadership style that we work on as a team is an approach that's more about networked accountability. We have a pretty senior team in experience, even though they're young. So we have five people on our team have started their own businesses in some capacity. And I think that's allowed us to really create a culture where each person has a great sense of skills. They know what they're good at. The other people trust them at what they're good at. They know the interdependencies between themselves and the other team members. And we have an opportunity to really come together in a networked approach versus a top-down approach, and therefore I see my role really more about supporting and enabling the team to do their best rather than telling them what to do. And that's been very freeing for me as an entrepreneur as well. There are enough stresses that you have to deal with, particularly in the early stages of the company when you're doing everything from taking out the trash to negotiating your office lease and everything in between. So this idea of networked accountability, I think, has been very powerful. We also take little things that we experiment with in the culture to see kind of how they work and what they bring to the team. One of them is something we learned from a holacracy workshop, which I know Evan has implemented in his company. And it's that when we start our weekly team meeting, we start it with a check-in. And the check-in is just simply going around the room. Each person has 30 seconds to a minute to say where they're at that moment or at that day. And it doesn't have to relate to the business. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it's, oh gosh, I'm feeling so tired today because my baby was up crying all night last night. Sometimes it's, I'm so excited because I finally figured out how to correctly pull the accounting data, or whatever it is that's present for that person at that moment. What we found is it does a great job of creating a sense of humanity within the team. So when we start the meeting, we all of a sudden see each other as people, not as roles. We have more compassion if somebody's had a difficult day, and we're able to celebrate wins with other team members if that's appropriate too. So that's one specific technique that I would encourage you to experiment with. You can do it in any company, in any group. So the last piece is really about aligning with your values. And this goes down to the personal level. So what is it that you as an individual value in life, this year, this month, this week, this day? And how can you make sure that as you're spending the majority of your time at work, either as an entrepreneur or working with a company, what can you do to make sure that you stay in alignment with those values? So this idea of work-life balance, the seesaw, I actually really don't like. And the reason I don't like it is because I don't know, how many people here feel like they have work-life balance? Like 10. Some. Congratulations to those of you who do. That's amazing. I don't know that I've ever felt like a work-life balance, but that doesn't mean I'm not happy with my life. It's just that this idea of balancing them in that way, for whatever reason, feels inaccessible to me. So instead, what we think about is, what is it that you're valuing at a particular time? And we developed this framework of basically 9 different things that we think are all very important, but that you can't do correctly at the same time. So on a regular basis, we'll kind of go through, or I'll go through, and look between, in the life category, emotion, connection, fitness, all really important things. We heard about the importance of health, diet, nutrition, not diet, health, healthy eating, and fitness. We heard about the importance of relationships and family and creating kind of a stable foundation for you as you're working hard. In the work category, having a sense of security, knowing that you can pay your next month's rent, having a sense of achievement, that you can continue to progress and grow, and contribute, having a sense of purpose that the work you're doing matters. And play, I think, is the piece that so often people forget about. In fact, we did some work with a master's student at the University of Pennsylvania School of Positive Psychology, which is the center of research in these areas. And the director spoke sometime last fall and said, you know, in all of these years, 10, 15 years we've been doing research around this stuff, we just realized that we actually forgot about play. And we now think play is a very important component, and I couldn't agree more. That's why I started learning the ukulele. Play is the thing that can give you a sense of creativity and freedom and youthfulness, curiosity. And so understanding what are your natural talents, what do you enjoy, what gives you a sense of wonder, newness, fresh ideas. And so with this framework, we kind of say, like, gosh, what is it that I value right now? Am I valuing security? Not so much. Am I valuing purpose? For me, purpose is, as you can tell from the talk, pretty far at the top, but I also value connection and fitness, health. So understanding what you value is really the starting point to understand how you can bring those values into your work and therefore also live a great life. Another thing that's really important and becomes more important the busier you get, as I look back on entrepreneur friends my thoughts before I started the company, I remember thinking that they had these really strange routines or habits. Like they would eat the same food every single day at lunch, or they would have the same bedtime, or they would have the same this and that. And what I realized is that it's because that routine helps to minimize the number of decisions that you have to make in a day, which can be hugely valuable if you already are having to make way too many. And so we created this pyramid just as a way to start identifying what are the key things that you need to be aware of how they impact your daily team, or daily routine. So food, sleep, and exercise, we heard yesterday from Daria, are 3 really fundamental things. Evan reinforced it as well today, that if you're going to cut out stuff, that's not the stuff that really can be cut out. It's what helps you optimize your performance. And I think we're seeing now in Silicon Valley, it used to be really cool to stay up all night and eat pizza and drink Mountain Dew and all those things. That meant you were like a real entrepreneur. Actually now, it's about wearing a Fitbit or a Jawbone or one of the fitness trackers and exercising in the morning and eating healthy and getting sleep. And it's a really great trend to see. Also, what can help make you productive? What mentors do you have that can guide you in these ways? And what can you do for inspiration on a regular basis? Take a walk in a new neighborhood or something that gives you fresh ideas. Most importantly, I think, how can you create space within a very busy lifestyle? So that might be a daily mindfulness practice, it might be a run, it might be something that just gives you a sense of space as you're moving very fast. This is a Zen den that we have in our office. So this is a way for us and our team to take a little moment when we need it. We also do quick interval exercises, 4-minute intervals, sometimes as a team throughout the day to bring in some exercise. There are a lot of little things you can do that don't take a lot of time. You also want to think about your support network. People are so important to the success that you have. It really starts at the core with family and relationships. How can you acknowledge your family relationships and also in many ways bring them into the process or the experience that you're at? If you are an entrepreneur and you are in the early stages, chances are you are not a great son, daughter, partner, friend. That is the reality of it. But you can help make it a little bit better by openly communicating to those around you that you really love what you're going through and ask them for patience and support as you get to the next stage. I think having those open conversations is really important. Same thing with friends. Having open conversations with your team about what it takes to do what you're trying to pull off. And then having a professional network to other entrepreneurs or CEOs that you can speak with. This is our team. We did a brief little retreat this year up in Utah, And it was a really good chance for us to create some space to look at the next phase of the business, bond together, have some exercise, and made a nice difference in our bonding. So kind of in summary, you know, I mentioned in the talk that this is the topic that just kept resonating for me, and it's, I think, becoming more and more common in the entrepreneurial space to talk about values and health and things like that. And I really do believe that it is possible to build a business and not compromise who you are and what you value. I also believe that when you can be true to yourself, it's possible to have a better impact on the world, a more sustaining impact. And so my hope for you is just to take these ideas and understand how you can potentially incorporate some of them in your life, see what resonates with you, and particularly for those that are either running businesses or want to start businesses, to have that hope and vision that it's possible to do it in a way that is still healthy for you. Most importantly, love life, love what you're doing. As an entrepreneur, you're going to definitely wake up days and absolutely hate it. So it's important to know that you're also going to wake up days and love it, and to just find the steadiness in that emotional roller coaster of this amazing thing called entrepreneurship. So, thank you.
I'll come right back to you. Give it up for Ingrid Sanders. Give it up. We have time for a couple quick questions for Ingrid if you have one for her. Ingrid, a question I'd like to start with for you is, with popexpert, of course, people want to learn new things, and it's a marketplace where a lot of people are exploring and putting some products out there. How does popexpert distinguish themselves among the various places people can go to learn new things?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So popexpert was really inspired by my experience on Sabbatical, spending a lot of time with expert teachers and coaches learning things, and also by my experience getting certified as a coach and teacher and going through that process. And so we really focus on finding the amazing teachers and coaches out there and making them very accessible to you. As you can tell from my passion, it's really topics that can help you get better at life, work, and play, live a better life. So I would say that combination of kind of aspirational living, but with very practical ways to engage in it. So on popexpert, you can meet over live one-to-one video mentoring sessions with experts, and you can participate in online workshops with some of the celebrity level experts and really top people.
Great, thank you. Let's take a question right over here with those glasses on.
Hi, my name's Mandy Mowers. I just was wondering, you said you still have one of those bracelets on. Mm-hmm. I was wondering what your word is.
Oh, good question. It is leadership right now. I put this one on, early last fall. We've had some, as a company, as we've been building, we've made some pretty significant decisions and changes around building the team. We've really spent a lot of time intentionally bringing together the people that believe in the business, and I kind of knew that to move me through that process, I needed to really focus on leadership. Although I think as happens with these words, as I've heard from other people, I think I'm actually feeling pretty good about this word right now, and I've been tempted to start to create a new one that says love. So.
Hi Ingrid, great talk by the way, I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Quick question, so when you're on your sabbatical, how do you keep from thinking about what's next? Because I'm sure that question must have popped up at some point. How do you just block it?
Yeah, you know, in meditation, I found one of the most helpful techniques for meditation is to, when a thought arises, you just thank it and let it go. The typical response that we have is to say like, no, I can't think, stop that thought. And it never works. So I think much more effective is, let's say the idea arises, the fear of like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do next? How am I going to make money? Am I going to be as valuable when I go back? It's really, when those questions arise, it's really just about fear, actually. And So you can allow that fear to surface, recognize it as a fear, just say, thank you, I'm good. You kind of, it's a continual process. None of what I talked about here is easy or automatic or kind of one day you decide it and go. It's a daily practice. Yeah, thank you.
Hi there, I just signed up for popexpert.
Thank
and
you.
I noticed that most of the slots are set for 50 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with that time slot, and how does that help?
Good question. It's something we've actually debated a lot. So it would be much easier to drive activity if we allowed you to pay by the minute or do 15 minutes or 30 minutes, things like that. So it's a very intentional decision to set at 50-minute slots because we think that's really the right amount of time to get a lot of value from an interaction. If you have an experience with a health coach or any of these types of people, it's typically either kind of an hour and a half. Because we're working with a technology and we wanted people to have a little bit of time to switch in between sessions, take notes, things like that, we wanted to leave that kind of 10-minute buffer that you have in school. You know, we've all had 50-minute classes probably in school, and that's how we came up with it. But we want the interactions that you have to be meaningful for you to come away with value from it, and we felt shorter makes that harder.
Big Omaha, give it up for Ingrid Sanders.